Hello, it's very late at night, but I can't go to bed until we talk about Infinity Ultron because I chose to sleep in this morning instead of making this video. So we now only have 14 hours and 46 minutes at the time of recording to talk about Infinity Ultron in what is going to be the second to last spotlight cache, kind of. Um, in the remaining 14 hours that you have to pick up Infinity Ultron, is he worth your keys or tokens, your resources? And if you did get him, what are some decks that you can keep trying him in? Even though weekend missions are gone, hopefully you already got those marked off. What can you expect of Infinity Ultron moving forward? And in the last few minutes, in the last final moments, is he worth it? Now, before we continue this conversation, it is really important to acknowledge something that the Second Dinner, the developers of Marvel Snap, have released. They released this earlier today, this morning. This Thursday is an OTA. We've known that that's happening. And they said, as a heads up, for Thursday's OTA update, we're giving Infinity Ultron a bump in power. Probably because he's underperforming. They'll have some paragraph and spiel about why that is. He is changing from 5.6 to 5.8. Then they said, if this adjustment changes your thought process, be sure to grab them from the Spotlight cache or shop before it resets on Tuesday. They also, in another question that I didn't take the time to find, but I guess source, trust me, bro. Somebody asked, are there other changes that are coming in this OTA to like the stones? Are they getting different power, different abilities? And they clarified that it is just a change to Ultron's power, and that is it. So there's not a rework on the stones. The stones aren't getting a buff or nerf or anything. It's just Ultron alone. I still think this changes nothing. I mean, we'll keep this video short. I still don't think you should spend your resources on Ultron, but if you were considering it, this might push you over the line. There's the information for you if you want it. So let's talk about Infinity Ultron and the data because it is not good. He is sitting at a popularity rate of 19.8, which is more than Kahori, which is surprising to me. I think it's because people had the hope that like, oh yeah, even if he's bad, he can be fun. And that like the fun factor can make up for the bad factor. And I think he's just that bad that even the fun isn't worth it. But he's more popular than Kahori, which is surprising to me because I feel like Kahori is actually a better card, even though the data disagrees. He is sitting at a win rate of 45.3% and a cube rate of -3.2. These particular statistics are important because this is after weekend missions when people are incentivized to win with him. And like as an example, for comparison, Kahori, which is like I think a similarly like lackluster card that in like Kahori is much better than Infinity Ultron. Infinity Ultron is just bad, period, where there are situations where Kahori is actually quite phenomenal. However, her deck building and deck playing is very limited in the same scope as Infinity Ultron. So I feel like there's something that we can actually compare. But her win rate and cube rate was much higher than this. And so it's not good to see something that is this popular this bad after weekend missions when people are incentivized to win with him, right? People were getting tokens by winning with him, and there are 65% of people, so to speak, who were not able to get that weekend mission accomplished because he just performs that poorly. So if that data doesn't convince you that you should not spend your tokens or keys on Infinity Ultron, maybe my experience with him can. I did spend my keys on him. It went exactly the way I wanted. I got the Pixie variant with the first key and Infinity Ultron with the second. So feeling very blessed after literally wasting 7 keys on the Kahori variant. But, you know, that's how it goes. In the video, I rated Ultron as a 2 out of 5. I am keeping his rating as a 2 out of 5. I don't think he's as bad as a 1 out of 5. Like, he's not horrible. He's still somewhat playable, but he's not good. I'll talk about that more when I get to the decks and Infinity Ultron, and we'll also probably talk about it more in the video on the OTA and all of that, but he's just not good. He just lacks playability. He lacks the contribution to your deck. He lacks contribution to your winnability. He lacks contribution to your ability to have an effective and consistent strategy. Like, he decreases the consistency and winnability of your deck. He's that bad. I do think that there is potential for him to potentially become a 4 out of 5 card because of the amount of dials that they can tune on him. Similar to the Thanos, where they want, like, I feel like Second Dinner wants Thanos to be in a good spot the same way they want Erishim or Eliath to be in a good spot. I'm hoping that they want Infinity Ultron to be in a good spot. They can change Ultron's cost and his power. They can change the cost and power on each of the stones. They could do what they did with Thanos and completely change the abilities of the stones. They could completely change Infinity Ultron's ability. Like he could get a complete rework like Loki. So he has enough dials and enough can change with him. And I think they want something to change with him that I think he could become a 4 out of 5 card. Even then, because I don't think that they would go as far to make him a 5 out of 5 because of where they started. Like if they were going to make him a 5 out of 5 card, I feel like they just would have started there and just released him broken. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's interesting how now the conversation has shifting to people saying like, oh, I'd rather them. It seemed like before people were saying, oh, I'd rather have them release lackluster cards and then buff them because whatever reason. And now it seems to people are saying like, oh, I want more power creep. I want more busted cards to be released, which I've always been under that impression. Like sure that you can say like, oh, I spent resources and then the card is nerfed. But it's like, that you know that purchase. I hope that people know that purchasing cards in this game and spending resources in real life or in-game resources is like cards can always change. And I'm under the opinion that it's better to have a card released broken and to allow people to spend their resources and have a lot of fun with it and let the meta change for a little bit. Let us have our new toy to then put it aside on the shelf because it's not reasonable and long-term. Nonetheless, I don't think the reason that I have this in the potential category, the reason that I have the 3 out of 5 circled is because I think that if something is going to change, right, they rework one of his stones or they change the power and cost on the stones, that they're going to try and aim for a 3 out of 5 is my feeling. I think if they were going to swing for the fences, they should have started that way. But who knows? We will see. He is like the big bad style card. Like he has that feel and that theme. So you want him to be good, but he just isn't. Like every deck that, even the winning decks that he is in, there's a better version of that deck that does not include him. And all the upsides that you have with him is like, oh, there's unpredictability. Your opponents don't know what you are going to do. There's some nut draws and the buff that he's going to get to go up to 8 power or 9 or whatever it is. Like that's great too. And it just makes the nut draws even better. However, what about all the times that you don't get the nut draws? It's just even more lackluster. Like there's like 2 or 3 stones that are just absolutely, like they just do absolutely nothing. They're of no value. And so cool, your opponent doesn't know what you're going to do, but they know that, oh, you're either going to do the nut draw where you're going to double his power and then make a clone of it. Cool, let me do the math real quick. Or you're going to do something else unrelated to the stones because not doing that, it's not worth playing the stones type of thing. So even like the uncertainty that it provides to your opponent is so predictable because of how bad those underperforming stones are. The sad thing, though, is that I do think that there is a space where Infinity Ultron can be good. Like, there's still a cook. I don't think that Infinity Ultron is a 1 out of 5 because he's not unusable. He's not just so bad that we should just acknowledge he's bad and move on. It's truly that there is ways that we could, be better at using him. But he's bad enough that it's not interesting enough to figure out how to use him. And so he's going to be left behind when there's probably a lot more exploration that can happen with him. So let's hope that they'll not let Infinity Ultron get swept under the rug in OTAs. Obviously, the one we have on Thursday, and then we have some others coming up throughout the remainder of the year. Hopefully, they continue to tweak Infinity Ultron to try and get him in a cool spot because he's definitely a card that deserves that. So with that being said, we can now move on to the decks. These are all sorted by win rate over the last 7 days. Again, it's nice to have the data where people were incentivized to win with this card. And every single good top-performing deck with him is an Airshim deck. And it's just because it's an Airshim deck. Like, he is probably making this deck worse. Like, this deck would probably be better with something like a Shang-Chi instead of Infinity Ultron. It's just not good with him. It's just that Airshim is good enough to compensate for his badness. So, and it's only sitting at a 56% win rate with a 0.2 cube rate. The second best deck we have is like a Victoria Hand style deck, which I would have thought that, like, not in a boastful way, but like this is very similar to a deck that I really enjoy playing. I would have thought that I kind of cracked the code for this because I tried really hard to crack the code, and of the 210 games that were played, I was the one taking this win rate down when I tried stuff similar to this. So I guess I wasn't taking this win rate down because I didn't try this. But I'm surprised that this worked. But I think it's because like the combination of Nico, the Hood, Mirage, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Misery, Victoria Hand, and Frigga. Like those few cards, right? This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then like kind of Iron Patriot and Shang-Chi for tech. But, like, let's just ignore those. Like, this combo of the Hood, Nico, Mirage, Hawkeye, Misery, Frigga and Victoria hand. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That 7-card combo is just so good when it works, which it's going to work 53.5% of the time. Like, that combo can win you games in and of itself. And then you just include other super good 2-drops like Captain America, Iron Patriot, and then the insanely reliable tech card of Shang-Chi. Like, of course this deck is going to win 53.5% of the time. It probably would win more if you took out Infinity Ultron and put like an anti-venom in here. Probably. Or like a, something else, a Wiccan or something. If you did anything else besides Infinity Ultron, this deck would be better. He's not doing anything to help this win rate improve. The next one we have is a Lunar Surfer deck, which of course Infinity Ultron does fit in Surfer. I do think that there is something. I think it's cool that people are finally getting behind the idea that Snow Guard with the Bear and the Falcon have reasonable spots in a Surfer deck, especially with Quinjet. However, you want to know what make this deck even better instead of Infinity Ultron? Sarah, because you are just getting so many discounts at that point. Take out, Moonstone, believe it or not. Take out Victoria Hand. Take out Frigga. Put in Brood. Right, so we're going to put in Sarah in for Infinity Ultron. We're going to put Brood in for Moonstone. We're going to put Sebastian Shaw in for Frigga. And we're going to put Makari in for Luna Snow. Or for Victoria Hand. You now have a really, really good Surfer deck. I think that it's really smart to have Ravonna, Quinjet, and Sarah giving you discounts. If that works out for you, you can have I'll put a Mystique in here somewhere with Iron Man. Like, what did I say that we should put in for Victoria Hand? What was it? Makari? Yeah, take out Makari and put in Mystique. Because now, in the right circumstances, your Iron Man on turn 6 is going to cost 3. Your Sage and your Mystique are both going to cost 1. Your Snow Guard, both Bear and Hawk, are going to cost 1. And Silver Surfer is going to cost 2. With Luna Snow, you have 7 energy. So you can play Iron Man at 3 energy. Actually, 3 energy. Iron Man at 3. Iron Man at 3. Mystique takes you up to 4 energy. Sage takes you up to 5 energy. A Snow Guard, Bear, or Hawk takes you up to 6 energy. And then Surfer takes you up to 8. I'm not doing my math right. There's something. I'm trying to do this all in my head, and I'm also dyslexic. So this the numbers. Excuse me. The numbers are just not working anyway. But at that point, you have a pretty reasonable Surfer deck with cool tech of Snow Guard. Like, the locations tech of Snow Guard is actually really phenomenal. So just take out Infinity Ultron and make the deck better. Anyway, I'm giving this deck way more time than it deserves. The next one is Hela, which what the heck is he doing in here? Just play regular Hela. I think that it was a way that people were just trying to get wins with Infinity Ultron. I think your deck is so much worse by including Infinity. Why is he here? Put in any other 5 cost. It is just not worth it, even remotely. But, that's Hela. The next one we have is Kahori. Again, really a Kahori Agamotto deck. This deck confuses me. I just don't really understand it. You have Gorgon and Agent Coulson to give you cards for Kahori. This deck is just weird to me. I just really don't get this deck, but it's got enough good pieces to scramble together 51% of the wins. So, once again, there's probably a much better version, putting Gwenpool for Infinity Ultron, and now you've got, the Season Passler, kind of, it's just, what are we doing here? This deck does not make any sense, but we were just trying to make Infinity Ultron work, and I think that the way that he was being explored is just wrong. Anyway, now we have my decks, so I went and took the decks that I had. I have 2 of them, right? So the one that I released, So now we have my decks. I have 2 of them. When I released the video, I gave 2 options, right? One that included Maria Hill and one that included Hydra Bob. These are literally the exact decks. These are not my stats. I went and found what other people were playing. I am so sorry. I had a 70% win rate. I still do. I checked. I'm still in the 70% with this deck, the Hydra Bob version, but it was just really bad for people. So I am so sorry. Not to toot my own horn, but to toot my own horn, I think that's also because of the way that people were probably playing it. Like, I think that these decks aren't hard to play, so please don't take this the wrong way. But if you're not used to playing a good Hope Summers, Elsa Bloodstone, Jeff Kitty, Pride Angela deck, if you don't already know how to play that deck well, Infinity Ultron isn't going to be what makes the difference for you. Like, I actually feel like you have to be pretty good at these types of decks to then include Infinity Ultron in it, because he takes it down that much worse. Because like I mentioned, I still have 70% win rate with it, but for other people it was unsuccessful. And I don't mean that in a boastful way. Obviously I'm not playing these 50 and 90 game, right? So these 140 games, I'm not there playing them, but it really underperformed for people. So I'm sorry I led you wrong. I also think that it's probably because when I was playing that deck the most, which I still do play it, and that's how I completed my weekend missions for Infinity Ultron. But when I was playing that deck the most was like day 1 and 2 when people were playing Infinity Ultron. So it was like an easy meta to be in because people were just like losing left and right with Infinity Ultron. So again, I mean, my, what is it, 20 games or so that I've played of these 50, right? So my half, I'm in the 70s, which means whoever was the other half had a really low win rate. Like, I'm not contributing to this. My sample size isn't enough to say like, oh, it's the players. My sample size is enough to say that maybe I got lucky is what my sample size is. And I just really don't think Infinity Ultron is good. And it's because you are committing a lot on turn 5 to just maybe give yourself options, which this type, like, the reason that I think that this type of shell is the best for him is because a deck like this wants options to end with. It wants a surprising turn 6 or turn 7. And so Infinity Ultron like leans into that and matches that well, because am I going to add a drone? Am I not? Am I going to add a drone and play Kitty Pryde? Am I going to do something else? What am I going to play? Snow Guard? You don't know what's going to happen on this turn 6 or turn 7 because it's so optional. And Infinity Ultron works in that sense, but the options he gives you aren't very good. So you should probably just abandon them. So, then why is he even here? So is Infinity Ultron worth it? No. After all that, if you haven't decided for yourself, no, he's quite bad. So don't spend your resources on him. He'll probably change in the future, but even then, I think it's going to take a while until he is tweaked and like put in the right sense where I could recommend that people go spend the resources. And at that point, snap packs will be in full swing, and he'd probably be much easier to obtain at that point. So definitely don't purchase him with the idea like, oh, they're going to, like, they want this card to be good, it's going to get better in the future. Probably, but it's going to be a while. So spend your resources on that card later. Like, the way that snap packs are going to work is you might get him anyway. So like, don't go get him now with the idea of him getting a buff. Like, let yourself get him when you get him, because his buff is going to be a long time before he's really compelling. I don't know. I'd gladly eat my words on that, but I just don't think he's worth it. So no, he's not worth it. So we'll move on to the next section, the new part of this video. I've been meaning to add this for a while, but the timing just hasn't been right. Looking at the card that is coming out next week or tomorrow, which is Strange Supreme, which is a card that, as you can see, my rating is 5 out of 5. I'm quite high on this card. If I were to give, one of the cards a 6 question mark rating, like I did last season to Khonshu, I would probably give it to Strange Supreme or Goliath, but in like my personal preference and enjoyment, it's going to be Strange Supreme, whose ability is gain +2 power from merging, and end of turn, merge with one of your created cards into this. So to clarify some questions that I've seen people have about Strange Supreme, what is merging, how does that work, all of those things. If you have Strange Supreme down as a 2/2, and you played Hulkbuster, which is a merging card that we've already had, we all know how Hulkbuster works. Hulkbuster is 3 power. So Hulkbuster merges with Strange Supreme and adds its 3 power to itself. So Strange Supreme now goes to 5 power. However, because he just merged, his own text says that he will gain +2 power. The same way that Penny Parker's text of +1 energy when merged applies for Agony, a Chimichanga, Hulkbuster, or Spider, right? You merge any of those with Penny Parker, and she will give you +1 energy on the next turn. in addition to gaining the power of that card. Strange Supreme will do the same. Strange Supreme will gain the power of that card that you merge with it, the Chimichanga, Agony, the Hulkbuster, or Spider, and the +2 power from his own text that it provides. However, in addition to that, he will also merge with a created card at the end of your turn, and the trailer has revealed that it is from any of your locations. The other confusion that I see people have is, what is a created card? And I think the confusion about this has been related to Victoria Hand and people misunderstanding what Victoria Hand's text is and how that creates confusion with created cards, which is totally fine. So just to clarify, let me pull up the game here and take a look at Victoria Hand, which is easy because I was just playing a Victoria Hand deck. Her text is, your cards that were created in your hand have +2 power. So that's a significant detail, is that people sometimes think, oh, if this card isn't buffed by Victoria Hand, it's not created. Well, it's because Victoria Hand's text is created in hand. So there are other cards cards are created in many ways. Victoria Hand is created in hand, which is kind of easy, so it's in her name. So there are, yes, your cards that are created in hand that would be buffed by Victoria Hand are created cards, and Strange Supreme would merge with them. But there are many other cards that are created that are not buffed by Victoria Hand that will merge with Strange Supreme. So add some clarification here to not just trust me, bro. There have been questions to the developers' second dinner about this back in February. Somebody asked what created cards were when we got this new type of text. And it is very simply, any cards beyond the 24 selected by the players before the match would be created cards. So let's clarify. When you hit play game and you are matched up with somebody, each of you have a deck of 12 cards that you have selected to play. You each have your 12-card deck. Well, what about Airshim or what about Thanos? Well, before the game started, you did not have the stones or the cards generated by Airshim in your deck yet. It was still a 12-deck card. So those 12 and 12 combined is 24. Any card beyond those 24 that the players started the game with is considered created. That includes all the stones. That includes all the cards from Airshim. That includes squirrels from Squirrel Girl. That includes the illusions from Mysterio. It includes any card from Shauna. It includes Hawkeye, Kate Bishop's arrow. It includes Doctor Doom, Doombots. It includes Doom 2099 Doombots. It includes raptors or ninjas or monsters from Monster Island that appear on your board. All of those things are considered created cards. So if you are looking at a card and you ask yourself, how did this card get in this game? Was this one of the 12 cards that was in my deck at the start of the game, or one of the 12 cards that were in my opponent's deck at the start of the game? If the answer to that question is no, it's a created card. If it is a created card, Strange Supreme will merge with it. So he'll suck up a ninja, which that's kind of a bummer. He just gave himself -2, but then he gets 2 back, so he's just the exact same. He'll suck up a squirrel. He'll suck up Mysterio's illusion. He'll suck up a card that was copied by Frigga. He'll copy a card that was Zola, created by Zola. He'll, any of those cards, Strange Supreme will merge with because they're all created. Somebody also asked, debris is another example. All those rocks, those are created. A hammer, if you play a Hammers Bros deck with Thor and you play Thor's hammer, that card was created. Strange Supreme would suck up the hammer. If you play debris, those rocks were created. Strange will suck up the hammer. If you had Subterranea or the Vibranium Mines, any of those cards that, give you rocks in your deck, and then you draw one of your decks, or a rock from Korg. It doesn't matter, right? One of those rocks that end up in your deck, and then you draw and play it. That is a created card. Strange Supreme will merge with that as well. So if it is just very, very simple. If this card was not one of the 24 cards that I or my opponent selected when we started this game, it is considered created. If it was created in my hand, like the creation happened in my hand, then that will be buffed by Victoria Hand. So a Chimichanga from the Wakandan mansion, destroyed mansion that adds a rock and then adds a vibranium to your hand, right? That vibranium was added to your hand, not your deck. So anyway, I'm going on about this much longer than I need to, but there was another clarification. Somebody was also asking, what about debris, right? So if my opponent plays debris, those cards are created. However, they are not my created cards. They are technically my opponent's created cards. However, they're on your side of the board. It is your created card now, technically. You may not have created it, but it was created, and it is your card because it's on your side of the board. So The definition from today that they said is the definition of a created card is a card that didn't start in either player's deck. That's a much simpler way to say it was not one of the 24 selected. Strange doesn't care about whether a card was played or not, or who played it, just whether a card was created and whether Strange and the created card have the same owner, right? So Strange will look for two things. Was this card created? Okay, he can merge with it. Well, first, was this card created? Yes, he now has the potential to merge with it. Is this created card on the same side of the board as Strange Supreme? Yes. Okay, then he will merge with it. It's actually pretty simple, I think. Anyway, so we go back to Strange Supreme. I think he's going to be pretty good. However, there have been a lot. I've heard people say almost the same thing over and over again. Oh, 2-cost scalars are always good. Thena, as an example, that they compare to. And I think that that's a perfect example that they're using in the wrong way. And here's why. Thena is a phenomenal card. A 2-cost scalar is really, really impactful. Havoc, as another example. Angela, as another example. However, another 2-cost scalar as Sam Wilson Captain America. Well, guess how Sam Wilson Captain America scales? Completely within himself. You could have a deck of Sam Wilson Captain America, and that's it. And he would still scale. So, removing him from this equation because he is able to scale by himself through his own card's ability. He doesn't need any other card to scale. Thena, Havoc. Well, technically not Havoc, but for the sake of the conversation, Thena and Havoc and now Strange Supreme are very, very good cards. But there is a reason that you do not see Thena thrown into every single deck. You do not see Havoc thrown into every single deck. Is a 2-cost scalar that can get significant power valuable? Absolutely. But that also requires you to have a deck that facilitates and enables and works with that type of scaling. Just because it's a 2-cost scalar like Agent Venom doesn't mean that it's just an auto-include. Strange Supreme is going to be the same way. There are going to be decks that work with his synergy, and they'll be kind of slow, like low-budget decks, like low-to-the-ground decks that just benefit from low-cost cards scaling in an effective way. Strange Supreme is going to be good in those decks, but he's not going to be the automatic scaling 2-cost card just because he's a good 2-cost scalar. So I don't think that he's going to be totally busted. I don't think he's going to overtake the meta because his deck building is very, very specific. I think people are going to go about it wrong, including myself, many, many times. I think one of the most interesting spots that he's going to be in is something, actually, for the sake of bringing up Thena, something along the lines of that Thena, Kitty Pryde, Elsa Bloodstone deck that also includes a card like Squirrel Girl, Mysterio, or Shauna. I think Shauna in particular will be quite interesting. I'm excited to try that. I think that something along the lines of like an Elsa Bloodstone, Thena, Kitty Pryde deck that has Shauna would be very interesting with Strange Supreme. So I'm excited to try that. So those are my thoughts on Strange Supreme. I'm absolutely spending my keys. I'm still wagering if I'm going to get the Spotlight variant. I would love people's opinion on this. I am a variant enjoyer. I like having a good variant for a card that I enjoy. And not in like a arrogant way. I also like having like if a variant is rare, it gives more value to me. And that's perceived value. Like I can't justify that. Besides, it's just, I like it. I like having cool cards that represent that I enjoy it. I like showcasing to people that this is a card that I chose to invest my resources in because I enjoy it. So all of that being said, I'm considering getting the Strange Supreme Spotlight variant. Not because I particularly like it. In fact, the variant, I think is a 700 gold variant that will be released the same day as Strange Supreme or the day after. I don't remember. Right, it's just a rare variant. I think is better than the Spotlight variant. But the Spotlight variant not only is super rare because it's a Spotlight variant, it's also like kind of the last Spotlight variant outside of Hydra Stomper. So that's like really rare, you know? So there's a part of me that's like wanting to get that just because I think I'm going to like the card. I don't know. Maybe I'm just ridiculous. So you can tell me in the comments if you think I am. But I have spent way more time on this video than I told myself that I would because Infinity Ultron is not very good and you should not spend your resources on him. But if you're interested, Strange Supreme is a card that I think is going to be very good. However, me, like many other people, have been wrong before. So wait and see. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the incredibly nice response that everybody has had to the ratings that my wife gave to Marvel Snap cards. She has been very, what's the word? It's been a joy to see how kind and gracious and complimentary you are to all of her in the comments. It's been fun to read those with her. So thanks for being an incredible audience. I appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for watching, and happy snapping.